Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast, traders. The big question next week is, will we continue to see dollar strength, or is this pullback we've had the last week the sign of more bearishness to come in the DXY? With that being said, let's get right into this week's Forex forecast. So the pullback that we have been seeing on the DXY is very visible here on the daily chart. It's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red days in a row as we get that deep pullback. There is a demand zone down below at 103.91. Do I think, if price pulls back down here that we're going to react off the zone? Not really. I mean, it's not a bad zone as far as a move away. I don't like that this red candle immediately formed after the move away candle. So it's not my favorite demand zone. I would have preferred a quicker pullback to it. But for, bearishness, looking at where could price turn around at, this is an area of interest for me. I'm not even saying that we are going to push down to that zone, because what I think actually could be happening if we go back to the weekly chart here is we have that weekly supply above. If you've been following my forecast for a while, you've noticed I've been pointing at this weekly zone for so long, and the last couple weeks we've been talking about two things. One, the first thing we were talking about was this high right here. I did expect that when price broke this high, we would kind of pull back, just like we've done here. I was wrong. Yes, I'm one of the few that will admit when they're wrong. And then the next thing I was talking about was, since it didn't work out there, we had the next high up here. And I was saying, if you go back last week's forecast, I was saying we were probably going to push above it and fake out to the downside, just like I thought was going to happen at this high. So I was wrong about this high. It just happened to be this high. So I think that this could be just a fake out to the downside. There is technically a little rally-based rally area here. If you were to draw the zone, I don't draw this based on my chain analysis, which is something we learn in the membership. I'm not going to get into it here. However, there is some sort of buying here. It's not how I do my analysis. I need to make sure we remove opposing supply before I draw demand. I'm not going to get into it here, but this could be where price turns around at about 105, just a little bit below 105. So I think we could push down into this area and continue the rally up to then pull back up to this weekly supply. If we remove this weekly little rally-based rally area, if we remove that, then I think we are probably headed much lower, back down below 100 on the DXY. I know this is kind of a long-term outlook, looking at a weekly chart, but it's important, guys. We want to make sure we are looking at these higher time frames to see the bigger picture. That's why you could have been looking for dollar shorts as soon as price broke above this supply zone, knowing that the fake out could possibly happen. So as far as the dollar goes now, I think we could see some more downward pressure here. Looking at the 1 hour chart, we do have a 1 hour downward trend, so that's significant. We don't have a 4 hour downtrend. What we would really need to see for 4 hour downward trend, and look, well, I will definitely admit that this is definitely momentum, but what I would like to see for a downtrend is a clear peak like that and a lower low with a clear trend line. That would really indicate to me that we're going to pull back down to that weekly zone. But at any point now, since we don't have a 4 hour downtrend, we just have momentum, this momentum could easily end. And just to quick note on momentum versus trend, trend is more sustainable, right? When we have a nice trend like this with clear higher highs and clear lows, that's more sustainable than just some momentum like this. So that's why I wanted to see a trend to really indicate strength, to indicate we could be pulling back down to this weekly zone. But honestly, we are pretty close to the weekly zone. We could just tap into it, and then that will be the next test to see if it will hold or if it can be removed. And going back to the weekly chart, I think it's very possible we do react off this little buying area and then pull back up to the 110 area. That's the next move I'm looking to see. I could be wrong. If we remove it, like I said, then we could look to be bearish on the dollar long term. On to the forecast for the Euro US dollar, starting with the daily chart here. This is what we'd like to see for a downward trend here. Beautiful trend, clear peak, clear valley, clear lower low. Just a nice daily downtrend. We are reacting off daily demand at 1.037. This is a demand zone that was formed a long time ago, basically back in almost 2 years ago. So with that being said, we could basically fill in this gap to the trend line, and that would be the next test for shorts. So how do we go about and trade the euro right now? Well, on the 1 hour time frame, we do have a 1 hour trend to the upside. All of the demand zones have been used up Nice, beautiful trades off of these zones. Picture perfect setups from there. Nice gap zone, beautiful trade off that zone. Beautiful trades off of this zone as well. Nice moves to the upside. The trend actually is kind of discontinued at this point, so it's not super concerning, but we would preferably like to see this higher move to continue that trend. But I'm more looking at the overall bigger picture. The trend is certainly up, so I don't mind looking for 5-minute time frame longs as long as this demand zone is holding here. That's holding up price right now. So that's what I'd be looking for as far as day trading goes. As far as zones go, we do have 2 zones here, but if you look here, this gap zone has already been tested, so it's not an area we would like to look for trades at. I don't trade at tested zones, but if you look here, we had a nice little drop supply zone that removed a demand zone. And then what I like about this supply zone is it was proven supply twice. We reacted off of it not only once, but 2 times here, and then we broke a trend line as well. So with the trend line broken and this supply broken by this demand at 1.048, this would really be our nearest buying zone that I feel comfortable pointing out on the 4-hour time frame. And as always, if you don't feel comfortable just with an order at the zone with a stop loss below and a take profit above, that's fine. You could wait for the zone to be contacted, go to a 15-minute time frame or even a 5-minute time frame as well, and you could be looking for basically a confirmation trade, which means demand zones being formed on a 5-minute time frame or a 50-minute time frame, and look to trade along at those demand zones instead of taking the whole zone. And what that does is, let's say you take this whole zone, let's say price were to turn around right now, you're targeting the high. You're looking at a 2.9, basically a 3-to-1 trade. Pretty good. But if you were to get a little 15-minute demand zone, that 3-to-1 trade becomes almost a 10-to-1. Am I saying you're going to get 10-to-1? No. But I'm saying it can increase the odds of the trade working out. But obviously there's pros and cons to everything. If you look for confirmation, you might not get it. Where somebody who just took the whole zone with a stop loss below, maybe they got filled, right? So there's pros and cons to everything. There's no free lunch, something to remember. But this would be the nearest 4-hour zone I'd be looking for potential longs off of. And then if we can create some sort of 4-hour trend as well, then we could add 15-minute time frame demand zones, 15-minute time frame longs as well, as long as this trend line's holding. But we don't have the trend line yet, so all I'd be looking at right now is that little 4-hour demand zone trade. And then going back to the daily chart, let's say we push up here, let's say you're long or whatever, as we contact this downward trend line, we have to be careful here. That'll be the next test to see if price is going to go up or down. At this trend line, if it breaks, that could definitely be an indication that we're going to go up. And obviously, we're going to be monitoring the DXY as well. On to the forecast for gold. Looking at the weekly chart first, just a reminder, we have a weekly trend overall. So I wasn't too concerned about this pullback, although it could have been a sign we were going to get a deeper pullback. But honestly, we had one big red week followed by an even bullish green week, and now we are pushing up again. On the daily chart, we did break above this daily supply, but you're going to see here in a second, we've got a beautiful 4-hour supply zone trade, but this supply was removed, which gave us this demand zone at 25.80. So if we do continue to go down, this would be our short-term target for shorts down to this daily zone where we can then get a move to the upside off of. And like I've been saying the last couple forecasts, guys, not only do we have another demand zone, now we have one down here and one even lower. So even if we break this demand zone, we have tons of backstop demand down below, 24.70, 25.29, 25.80. Tons of daily demand zones that we could be looking for swing trades from, day trades that we can turn into swing trades, the whole bit. So it's looking strong kind of overall. I don't love this pullback for longs, right? It's kind of concerning that the trend has changed. But honestly, when we have such strong momentum like this, we can expect a downward trend. So how do we go about and trade gold at this point? Well, first, if you are enjoying this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new to the channel. And why should you subscribe? Well, because in last week's forecast, we called out this 4-hour supply zone support resistance trap area. As you can see in the screen right now, this is from last week's forecast. A beautiful drop supply right above a clear area of resistance where we trapped the retail traders trading the resistance area with real supply above. Beautiful setup off of that zone. So congrats to anyone who watched last week's forecast and caught that trade along with everyone else. So how do we trade gold now? Well, there's 2 options here. If you're bearish, we have a nice little drop supply zone at 26.72. Keep in mind, it's not as high quality as this supply, but it is a decent supply zone we could see move off of at 26.72. And as always, you could look for confirmation here if you don't feel comfortable just taking the whole zone. Now, if you do get in short from here, profit margin is at least down to 25.72. This is the 4-hour zone inside of that daily zone. Good move away. It broke a trend line. So if you're bullish, that would be our 4-hour demand zone down there. So you could be playing both. Where do I think price is going to go? It is tricky to tell right now. Based on the weekly trend, I'd rather be looking for longs. So if you'd rather be looking for longs, you could ignore this supply and either wait for the demand zone to be hit and look for longs there, or wait for this supply to be removed. And any 4-hour zone there, we could look for longs off of it like that. So those are our options here on gold. If we break this high here, we really push up, then we will have a nice 4-hour trend to the upside. Then we could start day trading 15-minute chart outside of our higher time frame zones, which means you could just be looking for longs as long as the trend line's holding. So as far as gold goes now, watch that 4-hour supply, watch that 4-hour demand zone, pick your bias, right? Just because the weekly trend is up doesn't mean this supply zone won't work. So it might be worth a shot, right? If you just look at it as a profit margin trade and you look at probability, and remember, you should always be looking at trading in probabilities. It's almost a 5-to-1 trade. Let's just say 4-to-1 to be safe. You don't need to win a lot of the time to be profitable on a 4-to-1 risk to reward, right? So the risk to reward is clearly there in my opinion. That's why I don't feel comfortable, or that's why I feel comfortable pointing out that supply zone, even though I do prefer longs. And as far as longs go, the risk to reward is almost endless because of the weekly upward trend. When I say endless, I don't mean actually endless, guys. I'm just saying it is technically higher odds of be getting along, and profit margin could be greater based off the weekly trend to the upside. So hopefully all this makes sense. Any questions at all, guys, do not hesitate to ask. That's why I'm here. On to the forecast for the USDJPY. Going back to last week's forecast, and forecast ever since we were seeing bullishness here, I was saying we were probably going to push up to this weekly supply and react off of it, and we did just that. So it's been nice to see the predictions come true. How long is this move going to last for? It's a little bit difficult to tell. If you look at a daily time frame here, we do have a key area of demand down below. This is a key demand zone down here at 143.94. Why is this key? Well, because it broke a drop-based drop supply zone. If you go back to August, I also called out this the daily supply zone. That's the beauty of YouTube. You cannot fake things like this. I cannot go back and edit a YouTube video and just for the sake of, oh, I was right. You can go back to my August forecast and go to the USDN. I called out this setup as well as the weekly supply. So hopefully my predictions come true down here. If we do pull back down to this daily zone, I think we could react off of it to the upside. So as far as the weekly supply is in control up here, how far is this move going to last for? I'm not really seeing any demand here on the daily chart that could hold up price. Obviously, yes, at any point price could turn around and rally. But as far as how I view things, which is with supply and demand zones, I think we have clear profit margin down to 143.95. So how do we trade this on the USDJPY? Well, on the 4-hour, I just want to say on the 4-hour and the 1-hour time frame, we have two very nice downward trends. So I will say now, on 15-minute and 5-minute time frames, shorts are going to be good. All you need to do is monitor the downward trend lines. So as far as a 1-hour time frame goes, monitor this 1-hour downward trend line. Copy exactly how I drew it on my chart. That's very, very important. So draw the trend line. As long as this trend line is being respected on the 1-hour chart, you could look for 5-minute time frame shorts. However you like to trade it. Doesn't even have to be supply and demand zones. As far as the 4-hour time frame goes, this trend line is getting a little irrelevant, but I will say as long as this supply zone is being respected here, 15-minute time frame shorts are going to be good as well. And obviously, if we do get a pullback up to this 4-hour supply, what that means is on the 1-hour time frame, the trend line is going to be broken, but that's fine because we have a supply zone above at 152.23 that we easily could see a move off of with a nice little resistance area right below it that could kind of act as a potential liquidity grab or whatever you call it. I call it like a trap setup. So that could kind of act as that, and we could see a move off of that zone there. Nice little base drop supply that removed a demand zone. So as far as the yen goes, to recap, it's a great time to look for shorts in my opinion. So it's shorts all the way, especially on day trading time frames. Even if we rally up, we have a supply zone here. And if we remove that supply, then okay, at that point, we have to admit we were wrong, which is fine. We admit we are wrong here at FX Telepath. So if we admit we're wrong, that's fine. Then we could switch to a bullish bias. But in the meantime, we have clear profit margin down to the 143.95 area down to this daily demand zone. So in the meantime, it's shorts all the way on all time frames. On to the forecast for the British pound. Let me know your thoughts on the pound. Do you think we will be going up to this weekly supply zone and reacting off of it? I want to know what you guys think in the comments down below. All I see right now is a beautiful trend line. We have a trend line that is being respected. Yes, we did pierce below it, but in my opinion, it is still being respected. So with a bullish candle, I think that's where we are headed. Do I think we will react off this supply zone? Do I personally think that? It is honestly really tricky to tell. I like that we removed a demand zone that removed a proven supply zone. However, with this trend line being respected, that could be a clue that we could blast through this supply. So it is very, very tricky. But what I will say is for longs, our profit margin is to 1.29. That's nice when we always have very, very clear profit margin. How could we be trading the pound? Well, honestly, what I am seeing is a pretty nice upward trend line here on the 1 hour time frame. So what you could be doing is monitoring this 1 hour trend line. If this trend line is being respected, which means we are closing always above it, you could be looking for 5-minute time frame. I can't draw right now. 5-minute time frame longs are going to be fine as long as this trend line is being respected. We are in contact with this supply zone right now, and it is proven supply as we have gotten a reaction off it, which is great because if this zone gets removed, if we get a 1 hour demand zone there, we could certainly be looking for longs off of that demand zone on the British pound if we do get that demand zone. And this is a demand zone that I will have on the charts for all of the members. If you want to trade alongside myself and the community, join the Diamond membership for exclusive access to our daily market breakdown videos and catch trades like these. Plus, dive deep with our full-length forecast covering 26 plus markets, our interactive Sunday Zoom sessions, and personal homework to sharpen your strategy. And you'll also join our private Discord group for direct access to me and unlock a complete library of A to Z video lessons to master supply and demand trading. Don't miss out. Let's level up your trading. Links are in the description down below. And as we continue to push up here on the 4 hour time frame, like I said, it's possible we do push up to that weekly supply that's up above. However, we have a nice little drop-based drop supply at 1.27. Do I think that this is going to be the top of price and we're going to rally that back down to there? Not really. There's not really. If we had a weekly downtrend and a daily downward trend, I think that this move is quite possible and I would feel comfortable pointing out that supply. I still don't think it's a bad area to maybe get a quick little short trade in, maybe like a 1-to-1, 2-to-1. If you get a confirmation on an entry on a lower time frame, on a day trading time frame, you could turn that 2-to-1 move into like a 4-to-1, 5-to-1, right? So this is a good little area to maybe look for a quick short to kind of, prices really rallying up to kind of pull back, a little pullback, and then rally up. So I'm not saying we're going to get a massive move off of this supply, but I kind of doubt we'll just blast right through it. So it could be an area we look for a quick short and then continue to push up to that weekly supply. Now, if we remove this supply zone here and we are left with a 4 hour demand zone, then at that point, okay, we could look for longs off of that demand zone there. So on the pound right now, it's really just waiting. I don't really see that many good setups right now, but it's kind of waiting for some zones to be removed, maybe day trading long with the overall 1 hour trend of the upside. So as far as the pound goes, we could be pulling up to the weekly supply. So you could be, looking for longs with that idea with the tracement. And it's technically with the trend, right? The weekly trend is up. So longs are with the trend, which is probably why this demand zone trade worked out here. And to kind of summarize again, it's very, very possible we pull up to that weekly supply. Am I saying we're going to react off of it? No. But if you do get in long, that supply zone might be an area where you look to take profit on a little bit of your position to just in case price starts to rally down. On to the forecast for the USDCAD. Nice little rally-based rally demand zone here in the daily chart at 1.39, and we reacted perfectly off of it. Pushed up, contacted the daily supply at 1.41. Perfect reaction off that supply. Not a supply zone that I would have been trading in my opinion, but a nice move off of it nonetheless. So as we pull back into this daily zone, do I want to get in long at this zone? No, it's very tested, right? We spent a lot of time here. We tested it over 50% of the way in, so it's definitely not a zone I would feel comfortable getting in long at. I want to make that very, very clear. So how do we trade this? Well, it's a tricky one. We have a beautiful 4 hour trend to the upside. The issue is we're really, really getting a pullback here. But what I will say is on the USDCAD, I'll keep it very, very simple. As long as this trend line's holding, 15-minute time frame longs are going to be good. Do I think it's going to hold? I don't know. Probably not, in my opinion. So what I will say is if we remove that upward trend line there, if there's a supply zone there, supply level, that could be maybe a potential short entry trade right there on the USDCAD. That's really about it. It sucks when we get such a big move up like this. It's great if you're long from down here like we were a couple weeks ago, but as far as trading setups go, there's no zones here, right? So it's really, really tricky. And then when we get a pullback, it's like, what the heck do we do? So I would just be monitoring this upward trend line there and looking to get in long on the day trading timeframes as long as that trend line is holding. And that's really going to be about it in the USDCAD. I know it's kind of a short analysis, but there's just not a lot going on in this pair right now. But with the trends to the upside, I don't mind looking for longs, but we need to monitor this 4-hour trend line to see if it holds or not. Because if it breaks, I think we could see some deep pullbacks here in the USDCAD. On to the forecast for the AUDUSD, starting with the daily chart here. Beautiful downward trend. It's very similar to some of the other downward trends. So nice downward trend. We are getting a pullback. It's not too strong, but you know, we are getting very close to contacting that trend line. So we could start to see price kind of turn around here in the Aussie US dollar. As far as the 4-hour chart goes, we did end up removing this downward trend line as we are closing above the trend line now. So that could be an indication we're going to pull up. However, there's no demand down here. So it's not like there's a nice demand zone. If you pull back down, we can get a trade off of it. I'm not seeing that. All I'm seeing in the 4-hour time frame is a supply zone from all the way back here, a drop, base drop. Beautiful supply zone as far as the basing and the move away. It's picture perfect. So it's 0.66. If we do rally all the way up to there, that could be a short trade we could look for on the Aussie US dollar. I know that's a little far away. So how can we trade this? Well, honestly, the only setup I'm seeing is this 1-hour upward trend line. So as long as that 1-hour upward trend line is holding, 5-minute time frame longs are reasonable. It is very, very tricky to do because, yes, the trend line is looking good here on the 1-hour chart. So if you're on a 1-minute time frame right now, day trading, this is going to look like such a big uptrend, and it really is. It's not looking bad at all. However, when we look at the daily chart, the trend is actually down. So this could just be a temporary move. So if you are on the lower time frames, like a 1-minute and a 5-minute time frame, don't get too hung up on this trend to the upside. Do I think we can continue to look for longs? Absolutely. I think it's fine. But as we approach that downward trend line, right, like I was pointing out in the daily chart, we're getting close to that downward trend line. This thing could start to turn around and break this 1-hour trend line. So if you are going to day trade, definitely have this trend line I have on my charts right now. It's from down here to this point. Connect those 2 points, and that is where the trend line is. So that being said, to summarize, watch the trend line. If the trend line's holding, it's fine to look for longs on the day trading timeframes. However, with that downward trend line on the daily chart coming into contact, it might be best to either risk less on your longs. It might be best, let's say you always look for like a 4-to-1. Might be best to change that to a 2-to-1, or maybe at 4-to-1. If you get the 4-to-1 trade, maybe you don't even have a take profit. Maybe you just trail your stop. That's fine. I would look to maybe take some profit off or bump your stop loss to break even as we approach that downward trend line. So this is what separates the successful traders from the non-successful, is understanding this higher time frame analysis and really understanding that, you know, when a daily downward trend line is coming into contact, as we have a 1-hour trend and you're looking for longs on day trading timeframes, as we contact that downward trend line, what separates the best traders from the worst is understanding that and looking to be more aggressive with your take profits when you're trading. On to the forecast for the USDCHF. You guys know from all the way down here, I mean, pretty much when the supply was created back in the summer there, we've been putting up this drop-based drop supply zone. It is reacting off of it right now. However, I don't like that we tested about 80% of the way in, but the supply zone is in control, and we are currently reacting off of that weekly area of supply. So it's not a surprise we caught a beautiful 1-hour supply zone short trade right here. Nice little drop-based drop supply that removed a proven demand zone, and that was called out in the daily market breakdown video for all of the members. So I'm glad to see some people caught that trade. And with that being said, how do we trade this one now? Well, we do have a 1-hour downward trend. So as long as this trend line is holding, 5-minute time frame shorts are going to be fine. However, remember, with the weekly supply in control, that means we could be looking for confirmation. And typically, when we look for when we are looking at a weekly chart, we want to enter on a 4-hour time frame. So I will admit this 1-hour supply zone trade was a little bit aggressive, but typically we want to look for an H4 confirmation as we come off the weekly supply. So I think that 1-hour downward trend could kind of start to trend up and break that trend to pull up to this 4-hour supply zone and react off of it at 0.89. Why do I think that? Well, remember, when we go from a weekly, we go to an H4. And in this instance, this is our H4 confirmation. This H4 supply not only removed demand, but it also removed an upward trend line. So as far as a confirmation entry goes, right? I know a lot of you guys like to take confirmation supply and demand zone trades going from maybe a 4-hour to a 15-minute time frame. This is the same thing, just on a bigger scale. We have the overall weekly supply and control. We created a 4-hour supply zone. That would be our confirmation trade right there. So have an eye for that 4-hour supply. If we do push up, that's where I think we are headed, and that's where I think we could get a potential move off of. But in the meantime, I don't mind looking for day trading shorts as long as that 1-hour downward trend line is being respected here on the USDCHF. Last but not least, we are on to crude oil, and certainly not least, crude oil is one of my favorite charts to trade in my opinion. And right now we have a beautiful weekly downward trend. So we are expecting oil to continue to fall. However, on the daily time frame, I kind of thought we would maybe pull up to this daily supply, kind of just regroup up here at 74.70 and then continue to push down. But doesn't look like we're getting that. But I do like that there's a clear resistance area right before the supply. So if we do push up to there, I think it's a key zone we could see a move off of. But how do we trade oil right now? I'll keep it simple. I won't go down. Well, actually, on the 1-hour time frame, we do have a beautiful 1-hour downward trend line. So as long as this trend line's holding, 5-minute time frame shorts are going to be fine. So monitor that downward trend line. But things are a little bit more clear on the 4-hour time frame. You guys know on my videos, I like to point out both sides of things. I don't just say, oh, I'm absolutely bearish. Just because I'm bearish, right? So just because I think that this supply zone has more probability than this demand zone doesn't mean I won't point out this demand zone. So what I will say is, yes, this supply zone is a higher odds situation. There'd be more profit to be made on this one at 70.87 because it'd be trading with the weekly trend. So there's more profit margin. It's higher odds in my opinion. So I do like that 4-hour supply if we can push up to it as a short trade. However, if you are bullish on oil for whatever reason, if you think we're going to go up, if you think, hey, I know it's a weekly downtrend, but I think we're going to get a retracement and you want to catch that retracement, well, the only area I would be looking for longs is this drop base rally demand zone at 67.77. So for longs, that's where we could be looking for longs off of there. And remember, I pointed out the 1-hour downward trend and I said you could be looking for 5-minute time frame shorts. You can do that, but profit margin is getting tight. So as soon as we hit this 4-hour demand zone, if you are short on a day trading time frame, that is where I'd be looking to take profits or moving your stop to break even or taking 80% of your position off or whatever you like to do, however you like to manage your trade. So to regroup, I do prefer the supply zones for shorts, but this is also a decent demand zone as well to maybe look for longs at. And look, it could be a nice little quick little trade. As far as profit margin goes, it's not the best, but you know, it's like a 3-to-1 to the opposing supply zone. So couple good zones here. You could even be playing both. So have both of these zones in your charts. And if either of them get removed, any supply zones there I'll have in the charts for the members. Or if that gets removed, I'll have the demand zone for members as well. And then we could kind of regroup and rethink the whole idea here on oil. But for the meantime, you know, with the weekly downward trend, I do prefer shorts. Doesn't mean we can't get a trade off that 4-hour demand zone. If you guys want to watch the full length forecast with all the other markets, make sure to subscribe to the channel membership to get access.